Hey everybody, Merchant Worm here today to peddle an idea to you all in regards to exotics and how I believe that most exotics in the game need an update. And so Bungie should do an exotic 3.0. Now, of course, my idea from this came from the past few seasons where we've got massive overhauls to our different subclasses, Arc, Void, Solar, stuff like that. But something that has been, in my opinion, lacking in all of these is the exotic variation. I mean, when you think about it, you get on Warlock, you've got a few options of great exotics that will, really carry you through content such as Starfire Protocol. Um, same thing for Titan. You've got like Heart of Inmost Lights. You've got a lot of exotics. Gear Falcons, Hobart for Hunter, if you want one for Hunter. These can carry you through all manners of content, high level, low level, and they're great and they're widely chosen. But we have more exotics that need a lot of love and many exotics that see almost no usage. Things like Severance Enclosure, things like Vesper of Radius, things like, ready for it? Sanguine Alchemy. Okay. When was the last time you heard of somebody using Sanguine Alchemy? Okay. It's unheard of. It is literally unheard of. And so today I wanted to talk not about specific changes to specific exotics, but just the idea of an exotic 3.0 and why it is needed. Exotics, of course, have been changing all throughout Destiny's history. And every single season, we get a sandbox update where, some exotics are brought down and brought in line. Some exotics are brought up to perform better. We get those every season. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, those are awful or complain about them in any way because it's great. But we have seen too many exotics just get looked over by Bungie. Sanguine Alchemy is one of those. And I don't know if y'all remember, but Sanguine Alchemy, when it first came out, was literally the premier choice for Warlocks. When you were standing in a rift, it would mark enemies through walls, which was insanely good in PvP. But Bungie, of course, had to nerf it because that was busted. It was busted to have literally 24/7 wall hacks in the Crucible. So they changed it, and when they changed it, they butchered it, and it has never seen use again. I literally cannot think of the last person I saw using Sanguine Alchemy. And that's just one example of many where there's exotics just they don't see play. So I think an exotic 3.0, which essentially would be a massive rework of all exotics or almost all exotics in the game, is necessary. And what would this rework entail? Number one, the most important thing is take the least used exotics in PvE and PvP. Actually, no, take it back. First thing, separate the PvE and PvP exotics, okay? Peacekeepers. You don't see Peacekeepers in PvE because they're not really a PvE exotic. They're a PvP exotic, and they're great in PvP. Not so much in PvE. But I think Bungie needs to separate the two, okay? Separate PvE and PvP, and look at the least used to most used exotics in each of those categories. Things like Sanguine Alchemy, things like Severance Enclosure, things like Blight Ranger. Really look at them, analyze them, and think of ways, hey, how can we make this better? How can we improve the amount of times people choose this exotic? And one of the big issues I have with a bunch of exotics is there are too many exotics that are switch when you have super and then take them off. I think that all these exotics should have some innate function on them that doesn't require super use. For example, Helm of Saint 14. Helm of Saint 14, improve the amount of, health you get when you have an overshield, for example. Something small, but something that is helpful to the exotic. Blight Ranger, oh god, Blight Ranger, that's a rough one. Increase the amount of super energy you get from kills, not by like a lot, but increase it from maybe 1% to 2% per kill, or something along those lines. Just something that is constantly helping your character as time goes on throughout various content, or something that's going to always be active and helping your character to do something better. But that would be the first thing, look at the exotics that are not being used and fix them. The next thing is we need to look at the exotics that have been essentially sunset by better exotics. Okay. And of course, sunset not meaning, they're not powerful enough, but things like Lunafaction boots. Lunafaction boots is good. There is never a time when Lunafaction boots are not going to be good. The problem is there's just so many better options. Okay, there's so many better options that don't require, X this or Y that or something like that. And I think that they need to see some small changes. I wouldn't say necessarily buffs because they're still good, but they've been power crept out by better exotics. And that needs to change. Now, beyond that, I think that the powerhouse exotics, Heart of Inmost Light, Starfire Protocol, they need to be brought in line with other exotics. Because here's the thing, like you could buff Severance Enclosure as much as you want, but it will never be as good as Heart of Inmost Light is, and that is an issue. And I don't think I don't want to sit here and say, oh, they nerf, but I want to say that these exotics need to be brought in line. Starfire Protocol needs to be brought in line. Heart of Inmost Light needs to be brought in line. Gear Falcon's Hauberk needs to be brought in line because they outperform everything by such a wide margin. And one of the issues, of course, that we have with exotics and in situations like this is the power creep. Bungie runs out of ideas. Back whenever Lunafaction boots came out, for example, it was a relatively simple idea. Hey, when you're standing in your rift, you get faster reload, or you get auto reload in its prime time. But we've since moved past that to where exotics now have to be much more, flashy. Now, we've run out of basic functions for various exotics, so we got to start making them super flashy. And I think Bungie, going forward, could look at new ways to make certain exotics a little bit more bare bones. But again, we're not talking about new exotics here. We're talking about old ones that exist currently. So the high tier exotics need to be brought up and brought in. As I was saying, brought up or brought down to be in line with everything else. If we don't do that, Bungie could add as many new exotics as they want, but if they can't compete with the old, nobody's going to use them. And that's kind of the way it's always been in Destiny. But with that being said, though, that's my thoughts on the situation. We need to see a massive exotic rework through a system of exotic 3.0, so that we don't see the same 4 or 5 or maybe 6 exotics being used constantly throughout the game. But yeah, with that being said, let me know your thoughts on it. Do you agree? Do you think that there needs to be a major exotic rework? Do you agree with the idea of buffing low level exotics? I couldn't imagine anybody wouldn't agree with that, but buffing low level exotics or low play exotics up to bring them higher, and nerfing the higher tier exotics. But yeah, with that being said, I appreciate you guys for coming and watching, and y'all take care of yourselves. Bye for now.